Sateman began sweating heavily as he heard about breaking a spell, then thought that the great prince was not well, and would wake up and say he was not sick. Jiabu was grinning while he replied as he expected. He thought that even if the southerners had some magic skills, how could they be compared to the believers of the everlasting heaven? He then stood up, placed his hand on Sateman's shoulder, and told him that tomorrow the elder would set up an altar to cast a spell to break his sorcery, and laughed while Sateman was silent. Sateman continued to sweat heavily, thinking that there was a misunderstanding because Jiabu said he agreed but wondered when he agreed. A few moments later, it was still raining, and a wooden cart was being pushed. It was the wooden altar made for Sateman being pushed towards the Toad village. Sateman stood on top of the wooden altar and thought it was so high. Meanwhile, a man was walking on the top of their stone gates with a blazing flame behind him. It was Cheng Dale with a grass raincoat covering him from the rain while dancing to the song of Billie Jean. Despite the heavy rain, Cheng Dale kept grooving aimlessly and moonwalking. This terrified the princes of the Ring tribe, wondering how he managed to walk with his feet while his body was not moving, and claimed that it was a magical pace and sharp sorcery. The witch doctor Sateman couldn't understand Cheng Dale's spell and thought that he was really an expert. He gulped and continued thinking that Cheng Dale would not hit him too hard when they started fighting. Sateman yelled to get Cheng Dale's attention, then called him an ugly demon and told him not to show off his stupid demonic arts in front of him, which caused him to stop dancing and pay attention. Cheng Dale wondered when this fool arrived because he had a hard time remembering how to sing the song and cursed. He forgot the words. Cheng Dale called him a crook, then said he was the Toad Village immortal who inherited the glorious immortal path from the South Pole immortal himself, and how dared he talk about the heavenly law in front of him, which the Sateman replied that he was a devotee of eternal nature, the spokesman of the grassland spirit, and called him an ugly demon. The witch doctor started thumping his feet and said to watch him break his demonic arts, then yelled to the eternal nature to grant him power, and that he was Sateman. This terrified Cheng Dale and thought that this was not good. His pace was mysterious and unpredictable, the movement vaguely combined with a certain rhythm. While the witch doctor began dancing, Cheng Dale wondered if this was the legendary Northeast Yonge. Northeast Yonge is the ancestor of square dance in the world, to be restrained by the other side if he met the enemy dancing the moonwalk. Cheng Dale removed his grass raincoat and thought that if he wanted to win over the other side, he could only use that move. As the saying goes, never let society shake you down. It was useless to have piglets covered in tattoos. Cheng Dale pointed his finger up and yelled to come on music. He started to rap with coordinated dance moves about how he used to be king. Then later he said forget it and gave up his rights and position, but they are still fighting and rubbing for power. He used to be young and extremely frivolous, crazy for state power. The sword angrily carved a snow-winged eagle, the generous mountain sword in the skies. The fire continuously burned, and the sea had 1,000 waves. These two continued doing their own thing as the rain continued. This amazed the princes of the Ring tribe, wondering if this was a legendary fight between witchcraft, and that it was such a pity they couldn't see through the mystery with just ordinary eyes. Sateman continued thumping his feet, yet got distracted and questioned what kind of spell that was because it penetrated through the ear into the heart. Cheng Dale continued his dance and rap about a magic twist. As a result, this got the witch doctor because he felt like it was a whisper of hell. The demon's pace was so powerful that he slipped. It was so slippery that he fell from the wooden altar. He shouted as he fell down to the ground while the Ring tribe hurried up and saved the elder. The Ring tribe was terrified of the powerful sorcery. They obviously felt very uncomfortable but still wanted to listen to it, and the movement felt like they saw the dance of death. While the Ring tribe was scared by his sorcery, Cheng Dale stood tall with his hand in the air and thought if they still wanted to fight him. He did not believe the brainwashing of killing devices of society shaking and shouting weed is sacrifice. He could still survive. Fast forward, it rained heavily for several days while Toad villagers escaped. Liu Zhai with a grass raincoat thought of Cheng Dale. Someone asked how many people were still left in the village. Then someone replied that they should be all gone in a couple of days. Su Ying was worried and thought of Cheng Dale too. Even the longest rainy season will eventually pass. Even with the help of the gods, the system was extremely exhausted. She looked dreadful and complained she was so tired. Suddenly, she turned small, which surprised her. The system panicked and teary-eyed that her last power was also used up. She yelled in her exhaustion. The next day, it was bright and sunny at the Toad village as the Ring tribe stood in formation outside its gate. The Grand Prince Jiabu on his horseback told his brothers that day regardless of cost and casualties, they must take down the Toad village. Cheng Dale asked how many of their people were left since the Ring tribe was about to attack their city. Tin Man replied that among them, only those who were currently present there were left. Tin Man told Cheng Dale that the time was running out, then suggested for him to go ahead, and he would stay with his men to defend the city and buy him time. Cheng Dale replied not to talk nonsense, hurried up, and left, as he would guard the city. This shocked his men and they questioned how he could guard it alone. Cheng Dale answered that it seemed he could only fool them with an empty city. One of the Ring tribe princes asked his brother when they attacked the city since the army was gathered. Jiabu told him to wait, and he sensed that the situation seemed unusual. He then questioned why there was only one person on the walls where Cheng Dale stood tall with a string instrument. The princes of the Ring tribe wondered if it was Cheng Dale, where were the defenders, and what was he up to again. Cheng Dale sat and repeatedly calmed himself while he was about to play a string instrument. His hands gently reached for the strings. Cheng Dale sweated heavily as he panicked inside because he did not know how to play this instrument at all, and he wanted to cosplay the prime music when it mattered, but he did not have his talent. This was the bitter fruit of worshipping foreigners and not engaging in national studies. Cheng Dale kept thinking what he should do. Anyway, after all, it's just CDEFGAH probably. He thought that it was not much different from the guitar. Cheng Dale started playing two tigers with the chords of C, D, E, C, and EFG repetitively. However, Lei Nu told his brother that the bandit was pretending and thought it was better to attack immediately, to which his brother Lai Mu agreed to attack. Jiabu said that it must be magic when things were different than normal, and they should not make a move without careful consideration. Jiabu kept thinking while Cheng Dale continued playing his music. The clanging sound was like the waves breaking on the shore, like the wind blowing away the clouds. They thought Cheng Dale must have secretly had millions of troops, and it was like a mountain stream clear to the bottom. They couldn't do it without their mind at ease. Jiabu uttered that Cheng Dale must have a good plan. Ha Temen wondered how a few strings did so much and asked his brother why he couldn't figure it out by listening to what Jin Wendao thought before answering. He then proceeded to remember that Kai Mei was defeated in that battle because he fell for Cheng Dale's treacherous plan, so it was showing weakness to the enemy to lure him into the depths. Jiabu uttered that the heart was chaotic when the sound was too loud, the heart was calm when the sound was pure, the heart was panicked when the sound was wrong, the heart was beautiful when the sound was pure. Listening to him play was like watching his lungs. He was so relaxed. Jiabu believed that he must have set a trap for them, suggested they should not rush, and passed on his military order to withdraw. His brothers objected to Jiabu's decision, since they were having a hard time catching a good day, and he wanted to retreat. Lei Nu suddenly squeezed his horse's side with his leg and shouted an attack as they went on. Jiabu called out his sixth brother, told him to come back, and beware of getting trapped, while Jin Wendao sighed in disappointment and said that it's scary to be uneducated. Lei Nu advanced with his troops and commanded them to follow him. Meanwhile, Cheng Dale felt shivers all over his body, wondered why they were rushing over to attack, and his cosplay was not realistic enough. He ran and left his post immediately. This made the Ring tribe confused. Then, Jiabu commanded all troops to attack, and the Ring tribe advanced towards the gate and its high walls. They chanted charge as they went through the gate and wondered why they had not closed the gates at all. The Ring tribe wondered where the people were, how come there was no one in sight, and when did they leave, or could it be that Cheng Dale could use the 5 elements escape techniques? Cheng Dale frantically ran away. He was sweating heavily and ran for his life while the Ring tribe was behind, chasing him. Jiabu on his horse commanded to catch him alive. Lei Nu added not to let this bandit escape, as he had 1,000 ways to torture him. Cheng Dale kept running and arrived at the corner end of its walls while being chased by the rings. He took a step up the wall. Cheng Dale yelled as he took his last step. Then he took a huge leap while holding onto a rope. On the other side, his fellow bandits pulled the rope and told Cheng Dale to come up there. Jiabu then commanded to shoot the arrows and kill him, withdrawing his earlier command to not take him alive. The rings began shooting arrows, targeting his head, but kept missing Cheng Dale as he climbed the mountain. Eventually, Cheng Dale reached the top, and the rings could only curse at it. His fellow toad bandits asked Cheng Dale if he was alright, while the rings left behind were enraged. They let this bandit escape, called them a trash bandit, and threatened to send a squad up the mountain to catch them. Cheng Dale cheekily replied to the scum of the rings that he was able to come out, and they did not expect that, which pissed the princes of the rings off for being annoying. He had obviously escaped, and now he was deliberately showing himself off. Jiabu reminded Cheng Dale that no matter what they did, the mountain had already been occupied by them, so what else could he be proud of? Cheng Dale commanded his troops that it was time to leave and let them occupy the village for now. He smiled as he uttered that they would definitely be back. He praised Cheng Dale because he really picked an excellent place. It was Jiabu, and if he didn't give it up in the end, there would probably be a high price they were going to pay trying to conquer this place. He decided this was a good place for the troops. The officers of the empire entrenched themselves in useless forts. They didn't even pay attention to this awesome fortress. Jiabu continued his praise for the freshly cleared farmland, and its soil looked very fertile. He then laughed that Cheng Dale did a wonderful job making houses for them. Jiabu was approached by his brother and reported that the approximate location of the hidden treasure had been determined. It was buried deep in the ground and could be dug up at any time. It was Jin Wendao. Jiabu replied to inform the other to gather the workers as they would start digging tomorrow, and asked if the soldiers found any powder depot with gunpowder excavation would be much faster. Jin Wendao replied they were still searching. It was strange that the hiding place for such a large amount of gunpowder couldn't be found. He wondered where Cheng Dale had hidden it, and it was reasonable to escape with food, but questioned if they also took gunpowder with them. Jiabu answered that it seemed to have run out, otherwise they would not have run away so quickly. He then asked if there was any other loot. The soldiers found their arsenal, herbal stores, clothing stores, granaries, horse farms, and much more. The number of weapons and herbs in the warehouse was extremely high, and the quality was not bad. Jin Wendao remarked that no wonder they were able to fend off their iron cavalry for so long. The food that they captured weighed at least hundreds of thousands of pounds, not counting the food they took away. Such a small village actually stored so much food. There were still hundreds of war horses of all kinds in the paddock, and those were ones they couldn't take. The loot was quite good. Jiabu ordered Jin Wendao to inform the entire army that a feast for the entire army would be held that night in the mountain village. At night, the rings celebrated and drank wine over the bonfire, where the sky over the prairie was so blue, the endless grass, eternal heaven of eternity protected them. The rings raised their hands and swords in a celebratory feast of the bravest warriors on the grasslands, and that they were unbeatable all the way to the top. The princes of the ring tribe sat together, laughed, and drank wine as well. They went on celebrating while a wooden crate flew in the air. Suddenly, this turned into a fiery blast, catching them off guard. All troops were alerted for an enemy attack originating up at the mountain. The rings noticed something up there and warned their fellow troops to search and watched out for their gunpowder. They realized that the trash bandit was back, urged them to come down there, and fought them fair and square while Cheng Dale laughed in surprise at their return. Jiabu was enraged and sarcastically replied that he still dared to come back. He was worried about not being able to kill him. Cheng Dale called them foreign barbarians, beasts with long hair and horns inside their brains. When they saw the prosperity of his kingdom, they did not know how to make their own lands prosper. Instead, they set their unjust troops in motion to kill their people and took over their land. But they didn't know that he was the heir of the god of the South Pole, a friend of Tai Jingxing and Marshal Tianpeng. Cheng Dale was the toad god, which confused the rings about what he was babbling about. He continued to say that the heaven ways were cruel, and its retribution would do them no good. Today, Cheng Dale would execute the justice of God. If God did not punish them, Cheng Dale would punish them. He raised his fiery torches and called for his brothers, lending him a hanging river of heaven. The toad bandits recognized the signal to break the dam, and they began tossing the wooden crates of gunpowder. With a loud bang, a flaming blast of explosion after explosion was apparent. As a result, large amounts of water and rock fragments broke through the dam. This caused panic in the Ring tribe because they thought Cheng Dale really borrowed a river of heaven. Others began to drown. Other Ring members tried to run and flee to higher ground. They ran frantically while being warned to watch out for the rocks. Some got hit with rocks, while others panicked and yelled to get out of the way. Another explosion could be seen, which poured more water down with rock and wooden debris. A Ring member hung himself on a tree as the water level rose dramatically and rapidly. It turns out that this place was not only suitable for soldiers but for burying people. Cheng Dale sat on the edge of a mountain cliff near flooding water and said they had a lot of rain this year. During the day, they desperately tried to get in, and at night, they desperately tried to get out. Liu Bei stood near Cheng Dale and sighed as he remarked that humans are really strange animals sometimes and praised him for a good job. Cheng Dale replied, when the village was built, the military strategist said that the valley was actually not suitable for a mountain village. When the rainy season came, the village was extremely prone to flooding. He didn't expect his initial words to last to this day. That's why Cheng Dale sent his brothers half a month ago to cut off the flow of water. Then there was an uninterrupted half-month of rain. Liu Bei responded. The time, the place, and the people, those of the rings burned, killed, and looted, and did a lot of unjust things, really suffered the wrath of God. These 100,000 people from the rings were buried here. It was time for the rings to end this march south ahead of time. This was an immeasurable merit to save people's lives, to which Cheng Dalei replied that no merit and no virtue were too great. Cheng Dalei thought in his head that Liu Bei was not aware of how frightening his fear points were now, so he urged him to go with him since there was nothing there to see anymore and find a place to rest. Liu Bei asked if they had picked up the others from the village. He answered they had no food and did not know when the chaos would end. When everything returned to normal, they would bring them back. A series of notification pop-ups informed Cheng Dalei that the brothers had completed missions, which were rewarded with upgraded skills, increased loyalty, and a greater sense of belonging. An excellent completion grade was given for annihilating the Northern Ringer, followed by rewards for Cheng Dalei's choosing. Another task was assigned to regroup the people for the construction of a new mountain village. Another notification was received, notifying Cheng Dalei that the system spirit had run out of power and was about to fall into a deep sleep. Since the village was destroyed, warning after warning began popping up. A few days later, crows soared overhead, and some stayed at the submerged toad village. Dead bodies of ring members piled up, soaked in water, with crows around. A man was still hanging himself from a tree. It was Jin Wendao who appeared sorrowful and awake but was still dripping in water on his face and hands. Someone coughed and fell into the water while crows continued to soar overhead and produced a cawing sound. Jin Wendao continued to cough as he fell over the dead bodies. This water was being walked through by someone. Jin Wendao had been lying down when he noticed someone walking through. This man witnessed the flood's aftermath and was still wandering through below knee-deep water beside the dead bodies. It was Fu Delay. If someone said this was hell on earth, then no one would object, and from ancient times to the present, there were only two kinds of existence that could get out of hell. One was the ghost, and the other was the devil. What were you? Were you a ghost or a devil? During this period of time, many other things happened within the empire's borders. In the northwest border gate, the defending general Lin Wenchen was defeated due to lack of food. When he raised his sword to kill himself, he was saved by his own soldiers and escorted all the way back to the capital. The imperial magistrate accused him of leading his troops poorly. Lin Wenchen was decreed to be beheaded by Emperor Ming. A lonely city in the northwest, a shepherd posed as the sixth prince of the empire, and raised an army to resist the defenders of the city, and was arrested by the officials. When he was about to be executed, he bribed the guards to escape, and his whereabouts were unknown. At the northern tribe, its king cried for a day and a night because all his 10 sons died in Yuzhou. The next day, the king decided that it would be a good day and that he would make 10 more princes. Then asked someone whether his mother was the one with big boobs and made him his eldest prince because he did a good somersault, making him a somersault prince. A small and unknown clan of the Ring tribe, someone uttered it was safe for her to stay there. It was a Ring member and told someone it was not easy for Kai Mei to get her out, reminding her not to tell outsiders her identity, stay close to the princess, and wait for them to return from the war. It was Green Cherry, dressed in a fur coat and holding one of the Ring members' signature accessories in her hands. She thought of her master Fu Delay, and when he would be coming back, Cherry would wait for him there. Fast forward. Although the Ring tribe army in Yuzhou was wiped out, the army formed by the other clans of the Ring tribe drove straight in from Liangzhou. They fought all the way to the foot of the capital, and no one was able to stop them. Emperor Ming sent officials to negotiate peace with the Ring tribe and accepted extremely harsh conditions. The Ring tribe made a big uproar in the capital and left with a lot of money and goods. For a moment, the whole country was shocked. Countless scholars and talented people perished, and countless soldiers were killed. Wang, an imperial historian, was crushed to death in the hall. Before he died, he told the 10 sins of Emperor Ming and called the peace talks the shame of the empire. Emperor Ming was furious and ordered his body to be flogged for 10 days after his death, and his whole family was beheaded. In any case, the Ring tribe finally retreated, and the war was over. The displaced people could finally return home, bury their relatives, dry their tears, and continue to cultivate the land of their ancestors. Somewhere in the mountains, Cheng Dalei was told the water in their cottage had receded and suggested rebuilding the cottage, to which he replied there were 100,000 corpses in there and he was afraid of having nightmares when thought about it, not to mention living inside, then decided to change the place. Cheng Dalei ordered Gao Feihu to take a few people to collect surplus grain, remove the tents from the Ring's camp, then go to the horse farm to see the animals that could swim, as there should be many surviving horses, and reminded to be careful because some of the Rings were probably still alive. which he suggested taking a few more capable fighters with them, on which Gao Feihu agreed. Cheng Dalei told them to go ahead as he wanted to be alone, which his people respected and went first. He stood along near the edge of the mountain cliff. Then he sat silently. Cheng Dalei summoned the system. He continued character summoning, lucky draw, and entered the store. On his floating blue pop-out screens, a series of warnings and system errors kept notifying. Cheng Dalei had 10 million fear points on hand, but most of the system's functions were not available. Only the function status information could be used. He wondered if the system was malfunctioning. The previous upgrade was also dormant for a long time, but this was his first time Cheng Dalei encountered system functions failure, or maybe it was under repair and did not know how long it would take this time. When the system was not around, Cheng Dalei always felt empty in his heart. Suddenly, a voice emerged. Cheng Dalei looked behind, thinking it was the system that was awake. However, it was the lottery machine. Cheng Dalei questioned why the lottery machine was there. The lottery machine responded why he seemed to be very disappointed when it was him and not the system spirit. The lottery machine sighed, crossed its arms, and then started spinning around Cheng Dalei's head, making fun of him for looking so soulless and disappointed, which he complained and begged to stop because it was making him dizzy. Cheng Dalei asked the lottery machine if it knew something he could tell him because most system functions were not working where he had 10 million of unused fear points and wondered what was wrong with the system. He continued asking how long would it take for her to wake up, which made the lottery machine speechless for a moment, then responded that it was considered very unlikely the system spirit would awaken from that deep sleep. This shocked Cheng Dalei and questioned what it meant. Lottery machine explained the system had an error and was bugging. The system spirit was asleep inside the system, so there was no way for her to wake up. It added that he didn't have to worry about the system not working, assuring him the self-repair worked perfectly. As soon as the system initiated a reset of the data, it could return to its original form. Cheng Dalei asked if the system spirit would be able to wake up after the reset. Lottery machine responded no and explained when the system was reset, a mind-body like them, which was born with the system, would also be reset. All the data would be deleted and reset to the initial state. But the spirit system was a very special spiritual entity who was above the lottery machine, and after the reset she may never be born like her previous state. Cheng Dalei asked if it meant that resetting the system would make the system spirit disappear, and questioned how could things end like this. Lottery machine scratched its head and responded that it was complicated to say the least. First of all, the system itself was always managed and maintained by the system spirit. In the lower level of the permissions were the lottery machine, the summoning platform, and the store. The prosperous development of the village was the source of her power. The stronger the village was, the stronger the power the system spirit could wield. The fear point, on the other hand, was an external force that emanated from the masses, which was chaotic and could not be easily controlled. Normally, the system spirit always managed to control it. When the system spirit used up all her strength and fell into a deep sleep so that Cheng Dalei could evacuate all the village inhabitants, originally, she just wanted to sleep for a few days and wait for him to rescue the people, then build a new village in another place so she could wake up and regenerate her power. However, Cheng Dalei just flooded the entire village at once. This destroyed the village. Her energy source was then shattered, and she had no way to regenerate energy again. And the sea of fear points of hundreds of thousands ringers also hit the system at the same time. The destruction of the village rendered her powerless, and it also took the buffer out of those chaotic fear points. This effect of 10 million points was so intense that the defenseless system itself reported it as an error. At that point, the system spirit was in the weakest state of deep sleep and had no way to protect and repair the system herself. The lottery machine ended its explanation. In short, it was Cheng Dalei who played too hard and drove the system to death while pointing its finger at him, which shocked Cheng Dalei. The lottery machine kept pointing its finger then asked if he got that, and Cheng Dalei remained silent at the moment.